Hello,
Hello,
and
I was
go
going to
ahead.
start that.
Sorry.
I thought you said I was leading
Go
it.
ahead, Ed.
No, ladies first. You introduce it. You always
Okay.
do. You do it better. You know
Hello,
it.
and welcome to another episode of Utopia Planitia. I'm Teacher Kirby, and joining me are two of our panel mates. We'll start with Steve. Just Steve. Hi, Steve.
Good to be back. I'm glad I'm out of detention today. For
And
once.
of course, Ed.
Hi, Ain. I thought I'd refer to him in the third person this week. Hi, everyone.
Yeah. Ain, unfortunately, is not feeling well. We wish him a speedy recovery, but he could not join us today. All right,
When you
Ed, take us away.
well, before we start, when you said Ain wasn't feeling well, I was sitting there thinking, have they renamed the Seven Dwarfs? But anyway, moving swiftly on.
Whoa.
Right, today's build is a rather nice little build. We're going to be looking at a Taadari, which you can get from the exchange, or you can get from where else is it from? The Taadari.
It's
Cool
Nicole,
lockbox?
so I believe the Nicole lockbox.
That's right. So we've got an engineer today. I believe he's KDF as well.
No,
So this is going to
Federation.
be. I thought I saw KDF on the list. I think I looked at the wrong one. Yes, you are right. Yes, my mouse was highlighting the Klingon Empire bit. That's why I saw KDF. Right. So where are we going to start today?
Oh, why don't we start with the skill tree?
Oh,
Space skills.
we had a look at this a little bit beforehand, and I think several of us had a sharp intake of breath. There's a few things that we noticed here. Now, one of the things that I would explain is we haven't had much contact with. Kirby, can you let us know who this build is for? Because I
This is
can't see the name
for
anywhere.
at Ronan O'Brien. Is our
Right.
victim today.
Yeah, one of the things that we are missing is there's a lot of information that's not on the build that would be very helpful for us, namely which traits are being used, because it helps us see which way you're going to be taking your build. So we're going to be making a lot of assumptions with this. We also don't know the budget level of the player, so we're going to try and keep it relatively cheap. We're not going to suggest anything that is really drastically, majorly expensive that's going to cost you an arm and a leg to get in game. So right, let's start with the skills. We got a nice little station loadout here. This ship comes with a Commander Universal, a Lieutenant Commander Universal, a Lieutenant Commander Universal stroke pilot, and Lieutenant Universal Intelligence. So you've only got the 4 stations on this ship, but you've got the added advantage of them all being universal.
Yes.
That makes it highly adaptable. So what Ronan's actually tried here, he started off with the Commander Universal being tactical. So what do we think about this position here?
I think
And
it
the
should
skills.
get switched to engineering personally. Considering he's using beams, that commander tactical slot on a beam build, especially one that's a raider. I mean, you could throw a beta 3 in there or an omega, but personally I think if he ran an engineering and 2 lieutenant commander tacticals, he'd be just fine.
That is true. He would
That could
still
work
be
quite
able.
well.
Yeah, he would still be able to go tack heavy by doing the 2 Lieutenant Commander Universals as tactical. Still be able to have 2 FA3s, be able to put in a couple betas and a couple tactical teams, and be
So we
able to
do the
put
double up.
in, yeah, and then be able to put in something like Ox to Structural Integrity Field 3 in the commander slot, and that would help survivability.
And then he could even do a reverse shield polarity 1 in the lieutenant slot.
I mean, the only time
So
that
he'd
I
have a
would the only time that I would use a tactical in that main slot is if I had access to Zmork Gemro. And I was using maybe some of the sea store traits from maybe some of the sea store ships that allow for the cooldowns, things like the reciprocity trait. Then you could viably use the 1 tactical and dump in a 2nd engineering.
Yeah.
But I think on this occasion, it'll probably be better, as you say, to double up on the tac slots and drop an engineering in there, because you get more survivability.
That's what I was thinking as well. Okay. So we'll change the commander to an engineering and the other lieutenant commander to a tactical.
Yes.
All right, and then
So are we agreed that we go for the other thing that when you look at the build, if we look at the other tactical station that's down there, we've got a mix of beam abilities, and you've got shed cooldowns on all of those. So I mean, I can see
yes,
um, the you might want to do a single target with an overload, but it's more viable, I think, to have the fire at will 3 there.
I
I
agree.
agree.
Okay.
And
Right,
having
so
any kind of subsystem targeting is just really a waste.
So,
on
so
any-
Yeah.
I was say for speed and quickness, we know what we want our tactical stations to be. They're probably going to be tac team 1. Then the next slot up is going to be beta and fire at will 3 on both slots.
Yeah.
Is that sort of really agreed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Okay,
thinking
that means
as
we
well.
can concentrate more on the engineering now and science.
All right.
Now, the reason why we're going to suggest the engineering is you'll see a little bit later on. One of the suggestions we're going to make is going to actually help the engineering skills rotate a little bit faster, so we only have to have the one copy of them. So it enables the ship to do a lot of damage through having global cooldowns on the tactical skills, but also using various other little tricks to bring other skills into global cooldown as well, so as you can deliver a nice little punch and survive it.
All right, so I put in auxiliary structural integrity field 3 for the commander slot of the engineering. So what are we thinking? I'm thinking emergency powered or weapons 3.
I
Yep.
was thinking that as well.
Yeah.
It gives you a nice little bonus to your weapons power and also a nice little damage boost as well.
Yeah. And then Steve mentioned something about what was
Reverse
it?
shield
Reverse
polarity.
shield polarity. Yeah.
For a shield heal.
That's a very good shield heal.
Yes, it is. And then now I'm thinking double up on the emergency power to weapons so that we can
Yep.
do a full uptime, unless we're thinking of some way of cooling down the engineering skills.
Well, that's one of the things that I was thinking of was for a small moderate investment into your fleet, you can go get yourself a Crenham engineering bridge officer.
Okay.
That'll give you a small cooldown to the skills. It won't bring it to global. But I did notice that we'll come to the skills trees later. We can drop a couple of points. We will have them spare later on into the engineering readiness. And that will help on that cooldown. So it'll bring them down a little bit. Again, won't bring it to global, but if we are using, again, some other little bits that we'll talk about later on, we can get them close.
We can
But
get it very close.
We might be able to get away with having just the one copies of each. So you
Okay.
might even, you could drop that in, or maybe even an engineering team for a cleanse and a hill.
I'll put in engineering team then. All right, and then we can talk about ways to cool that down to global when we get there. And I'll make in the notes. Okay.
Right, now while Kirby's updating the notes there, we go down to that final slot now, which is the science. And polarized HUD is good. It's a nice little skill when you get caught in a tractor beam. Don't need it if you're using the attack pattern Omega because that has the same effect.
Yeah.
Or release you from the tractor beam.
But we did take Omega out here.
We did, yes. So, however, I would still be tempted to switch that to the science team for the cleanse and drop in the hazard emitters there for an extra whole hill.
I was actually thinking a hazard emitter in the ensign slot, and since it's an Intel, putting override subsystem safeties
Ooh,
too,
yes.
since he's
That
going
will
pure
increase.
energy.
That will
Yeah,
increase his damage.
that will do. And then when the override cools down within 3 seconds, as long as he presses that engineering team, he'll actually negate the, well, he won't negate the energy loss, it'll blip for a fraction of a second, but he'll still have full energy in that system. He won't suffer a detriment. Yeah, I quite like that.
Okay.
Good call.
Very cool. All right.
But you do have the option then, if you are suffering survivability problems, you can always drop that out and give it a try with maybe an extra hill if it doesn't work.
Yes.
So there is that option there.
All right. So those are the bridge officer skills, and remember, we're gonna talk about ways to cool down that engineering, so we can get away with the single copy of each of these abilities.
Yep.
All right.
Now, one of the things that I did notice as well was that in conjunction with the skills, there is two bridge officers, two DOFs listed. And one of them is the technician to recharge time reduced for engineering team and buff to starship hull repair when using the engineering team.
Now, if they did say there were some missing DOFs in the notes, so if you look at your notes, it'll have what they are.
So there's a potential cooldown there.
Yeah.
But only for the one skill.
Yep.
Right, where should we move on to next?
All right, how about gear?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I do notice he is running the full Iconian set, which does mean that for his override subsystem safeties, he doesn't even really have to worry about that, because with all the hot restarts here, within a second, anything that goes offline is going to come back up anyway.
Yeah.
That's right. The other thing as well is, in order to increase damage, I can see that he's put the assimilated module.
He has.
In a tactical console. Yes. Now, there is an argument. I know you on this build, we might actually keep them in for that little bonus that it gives where it dumps power into your subsystem. But moving that module out of there and replacing that with another locator from the fleet and upgrading those to eventually, Mark 14 Epic will be a vast improvement to the ship.
It will. You're right.
And the beauty of the consoles from the fleet is they're quite easy and cheap to upgrade when you compare them to the upgrade costs on some of the reputation equipment.
So take that out. We're going to put it back, folks. Don't worry. We're going to put in another vulnerability locator. And I'm thinking either the bioneural or the tachyokinetic we would take out.
I would favour taking out the tachyokinetic.
I would as well, because you don't really need the turn rate with this ship.
You don't. Yeah, and the bioneural has a much better effect on your crit.
It does.
Now, my idea for it was to completely drop the assimilated set, since he's using anti-proton, and throw in the ancient.
I was going to
instead of the kinetic cutting beam. And then
that is an option.
Yeah, this is one of the things that players talk about. Is it viable to actually get rid of the kinetic cutting beam? A lot of players use it. A lot of players don't use it. Some of the high-end DPS players still use the set. But when you actually look at the damage output overall of that beam and compare it with the damage output of a single beam, its firing cycle is a lot slower. Its damage output is a lot lower. It can be tweaked with certain skills, and it can sometimes show some good numbers. But overall, in performance, you'd be better off with another anti-proton in there, even if it was a beam array on fire at will.
Right.
Now, you can get some good results from it.
Now the caveat from that is that it has to do with the bonus from the two-piece set, is why a lot of high-end players are still using it, because what it does is it puts an extra 10 power randomly somewhere in your firing cycle, which then makes that shot and every shot afterwards hit that much harder. And it does make a big difference. So generally the rule is, if you're using the plasmonic leech, which he is, and at least one way to mitigate power drain, for example, emergency weapon cycle, then you can ditch the the Borg two piece, and still get either equal or better performance.
I mean, even if he's got access to things like greedy emitters, that would help as well in this situation.
Yeah, we'd have to redo the skills to put something that will activate greedy emitters, but it would be helpful, yes.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing to look at with power reduction as well is he's only running 6 beams and not a 7 or an 8 beam like a lot of other high-end builds.
That's right. So
I mean, I was thinking go along with Ed, throw in the 5th anti-proton locator, and then move the
leech up.
Yeah, move the leech up.
Slot.
Oh, okay.
Move the circuits down, get rid of the tachyokinetic, and put in a flow regulator to help his power transfer.
Interesting.
I mean, the nice thing to do, if money was no object, would be to ditch the tachykinetic, drop in the plasmonic leech there, and on the science console use a restorative with EPS. So you've got the EPG, EPS, so you're benefiting that side as well, because it looks like he's got all EPG in there anyway. Yeah. That EPG is wasted.
Completely wasted.
Yeah, I would switch that to drain. Ooh. Yes. Yeah, that's wasted. In fact, I like that idea. Switch that EPG to a drain and switch the tachykinetic out for just even a flow regulator would be quite nice, boost the EPS.
Yeah. I was thinking his EPS would be all power related. Drop the bioneural infusion.
Yeah.
And then run 3 drain plasma consoles.
Yeah, that works really well actually.
Alright, so put the bioneural down here.
And the ancient antiproton is a very good weapon as well.
It is. It actually is a very
and
nice
it's easy to
weapon.
get.
Yes, it is.
I think when it came out, everyone was using it. It didn't matter what weapon you were using on your ship. You could be using plasmas, you could be using tetrions, polarons, and every single ship was firing one red beam. Just everyone was testing it out.
I think everyone was using that in conjunction with the kinetic beam.
Yep.
Well, I think the big thing was that it gave a third beam for omnidirectional beams for the back of a weapon, so you could easily have something that has 3 aft weapons and still be able to put 4 dual beam banks on the front and have everything firing forward.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I'm going to talk about now is what I would say is a little bit of an elephant in the room, and it's the front weapons. I don't know whether you guys are looking at those. Now, one of the things that people do when they come into Stowe is they get given ships. And when they're given ships, they're given a ship, and unfortunately, one of the things that happens is the people that design the ships don't actually take the ship and put it into an ISA or into a CCA or into a Hive Elite, and they don't know the optimal loadout for it, so they give you what they think is best for you. And some people stick with it, some people don't. Some people mix and match, but to do proper damage, Um, Depending on your pilot style and how you control your ship, you normally need to stick with the same weapon type. So if you're running single beam arrays, use all single beam arrays. If you're running dual beam banks, up front all dual beam banks, and then your omnidirectionals on the rear. Cannons, cannon turret mix, unless you're doing the omnidirectional beam arrays, which some people still use because they offer debuffs for set bonuses and things.
Mm-hmm.
So on this, what do we think of this dual anti-proton beam bank that's up there? I know it's got the same crits as the others, but I'm thinking that the reduced
Right.
firing arc, yes, it's going to deliver more power, but how often is it on target? I'd love to see a part of this.
Yeah, I know.
See how
Well, I
many
Um,
mean,
hits it's doing in relation to a normal beam array.
if your piloting skill is really good, then you should be able to, put all dual beam banks on the front of it and go to town. But I think replacing it with a normal beam array would just be fine.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. Well, if it's a
So
question of
basically, yeah,
resources, you are looking at quite an outlay to get there. Really, I mean the mods are quite good on that weapon. They're crit
they
D2,
are.
crit H pens.
Right. They're not, I mean, they're not bad mods. And honestly, replacing the one dual beam bank is going to be cheaper than replacing the three beam arrays.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're keeping that in mind as we give this advice. There's certainly nothing wrong if you have decent piloting and can keep the dual beam banks on target. There's nothing wrong with putting, four dual beam banks in the front, as long as you can keep them on target.
I mean, that's the beauty with weapons in this game. There is no right, there is no wrong. It's all
Hmm.
dependent on the player. So, if one person says to you, "Oh, you shouldn't use cannons," well, there's no reason why you shouldn't use cannons. You might be the best cannon pilot in the world.
Exactly. Has more to do with being able to keep them on target than what's right and what's wrong. But the other thing I would recommend with these science consoles, get them up to 14 epic as soon as possible,
Yes.
because this is the damage boost that you get from going from 14, even 14 ultra rare up to 14 epic is absolutely insane. It almost doubles the plasma explosion.
It's worth it. It's really worth it.
Very, very worth it. And because their consoles are actually surprisingly cheap to upgrade. So, I mean, with a full set of four of them, you can go from Mark 10 Ultra Rare to Mark 14 Epic with under 100,000 dilithium. So it is worth it to, spend the dilithium and get them up to 14 epic as soon as possible.
One of the other things as well is when we talk about the science consoles is when we actually look at the slots that we've got. So have we freed up that fourth slot on the build? What have we got in there at the moment?
We've got that fourth science slot is currently housing the bioneural infusion circuits.
Right, yeah, because putting those to epic as well, um, as Kirby said, will not only increase the plasma damage, but if we could find a way of maybe, I'm thinking of maybe the extra one in there, because what I'm toying with is we want to try and speed up some of the cooldowns, and the way I do that is we're going to go on in a minute into some of the things, the skills and the specializations and the traits. But one of the things
Mm-hmm.
that when you do work through your specialization on the strategist tree is the attrition warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And now we got to remember that this ship is not designed to tank. It's designed to be an escort, get in, do its damage, and get out. Now, in order to gain the cooldown from the attrition warfare, we're going to need to actually use threatening stance, which is going to attract some aggro. And I think the more consoles he can get with nullifier on them, the better. Because although he'll be increasing with threatening stance, the nullifiers will be kicking as well to reduce that threat. He's still going to generate it, but it might be enough that someone that's got a little bit more than him in the match will pull it, and he'll survive a bit more, and thus be able to do more damage over time.
And for those that are not familiar with it, attrition warfare reduces the recharge time of your bridge officers whenever you are healed by bridge officer and captain abilities while in threatening stance. While not threatening, attrition warfare increases your hull and shield regeneration rates.
And it's a
Okay.
very easy skill to get. You just need to
It is.
spend your specialization points in the strategist tree. And the good thing
Mm-hmm.
about the trees are you can completely fill them so you can get every single one.
In fact, I have a point on the tune I was showing this on. Okay. So it is in the second tier of the strategist tree, which you can see I'm showing here in my game. Okay. And, okay, let's see. While threatening, attrition warfare 2 gives 30% recharge time on your bridge
So
officer skills.
while we're on the specializations, I would plump for an Intel primary and strategist secondary on this build. What do
I
you
would
guys
agree
Yeah,
with
think?
that's what
that.
I was thinking. He
All right,
does have Intel
that's
primary already, so I'm going to set
yeah.
this as second.
Yeah,
All
so I
right.
think that was the easy one.
Yeah.
Right. Um, right, where should we move on to next? Now, this is the difficult one that we looked at.
Mm,
Moving on to the actual character themselves, the actual captain. Where do we want to start? Do we want to start on skills or do we want to start on traits?
I'm thinking, how about the skill tree? The space.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Now, as we look through this tree, we can see that it's sort of balanced but not balanced. It's biased in the favour of tactical,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, it's one of those builds that has got all the points in the tactical readiness at the moment, which we still know. I haven't read that it's been fixed yet, and it's as far as I know, still
Yeah.
not working. So they could be considered wasted points. We did have a discussion before the actual show began, and we sort of looked over the skills, and we've sort of thought that maybe we know we talk about the Science Ultimate a lot, but this build could really benefit from it
Yeah, it can. That's what I see as well.
because we can really boost that crit chance with that ultimate if we can get him there.
So far I've taken off the tactical readiness. I know we've talked before about how shield weakening is really not needed. The shields drop and generally stay down as long as you keep firing, and that happens pretty quickly. So it's really not needed.
Yeah, so
And
we've
then,
knocked
yeah.
some skills on that. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I think we said as well with the defensive maneuvering as well, where there's 2 points in that, we could knock back one because the ship
Mm-hmm.
itself is maneuverable enough.
Yeah, and then we had said, we've said it plenty of times, accuracy really isn't one of those things that's needed. Um, just bonus accuracy from other things, from your natural things, is going to take care of that. Believe it or not, you can have no points in accuracy and still get bonus accuracy. I know it's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The accuracy in this game can be likened to let's shall we say thumping the rear end of a bovine with a banjo. It's very difficult to miss.
Yeah,
Right.
it is.
So we're going up with a load of points to spend here. So where else did we knock back some points? If I'm trying to remember what our
Well,
discussion
control
was beforehand.
amplification isn't really needed, so I took it off of there.
Yep.
And at least at first glance, scientific readiness we can probably take off of there for now. And that gives us 11.
Now we could, because we've got that one Commander Universal Engineering slot that we're trying to call down, we could spend that extra point. Is it worth putting that extra point into the engineering readiness to aid the cooldowns of those engineering officers?
Well, let's look back in game. Okay, so engineering readiness because this gives us the tooltip.
It's only
Okay,
a very tiny increase, isn't it?
so with 2 points in engineering readiness, it gives us 17% total ability recharge bonus. If we spend the other point, we get up to 20%. So
So we're
it's
using 1 point
3%.
for 3%. So we've got
Yes.
to think, is that worth it? And this is why I raise this point, because a lot of the times on these skills, when people go for the whole hog and put the 3 in, the cost of the point elsewhere, we're actually
Mm-hmm.
losing in the long run.
Exactly.
So anyway, so where are we going to put these points then, and where are we going to knock back some more?
Well, I know we were talking about the science ultimate. So we could take off. I mean, he's got a couple points in hull restoration. We can probably take that off. Or that take off a couple points in.
Yeah, I was actually thinking 1 point in hull restoration and 1 point in capacity.
Possibly.
Just because it's a raider and at least have something
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah,
And I
I
was
would
thinking the
also
hull plating taking off from there.
Yeah,
like to see at least 1 point in impulse expertise.
Okay.
Mainly because it is a raider and it needs that little bit maneuverability, and it'll just feel a little bit lighter in his hands when he's flying.
Yeah.
D8 trolls
A
be
bit more
flippin' mott
responsive.
joined the server.
There'll also be a lot more misses from
D8
it
trolls
as
be
well,
flippin'
because
mott
it'll
joined your
raise the
channel.
defense.
JFK room on
Hopefully,
the server.
that's what I'm hoping it'll do.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Well,
give
as
that
it
little bit of
stands
extra
right
speed.
now, we've got 10 points in engineering, 12 in science, 12 in tactical, and 12 available, with 1 point in restoration, 1 point in capacity, and 1 point in impulse expertise. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this because if we're going to go for the Psi Ultimate, we'd need an extra point from somewhere. Because you'd have to get
Yes.
25.
Are we going to go with the full 27 points into that?
Well, I believe if you're going for the Psi Ultimate, you don't need to go for the whole hog with it, so long as you
Yeah.
get the probability manipulator and the extension on the time.
Yeah.
Then you're good, because 15 seconds is yeah. The
Yeah.
full 30 seconds is very nice. So yeah, I'd say you don't need to go the whole hog, just nearly all the way. Leave the curly tail bit at the end for someone else.
So we
Crackling.
could
Anyway,
take maybe 1 point off of the crit severity.
we could do, yeah.
Okay. And then put into science. So I'm going to max out the 2 lieutenant. And then max out the 2 command.
Yep.
And then science readiness or shield mastery. The endless debate.
My personal preference, and the one that I've gone for myself on all my tunes, when I use a build very, very similar to this. This is the build that makes Kirby go, I don't know how the hell you survive. It just works. I tried it with shield mastery, and I tried it with tactical readiness. I tried it again with shield mastery. I went back to tactical readiness.
You mean science readiness, scientific readiness?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, scientific readiness. Sorry.
Friend underscore
Okay.
lab lieutenant
I
to
went
right
back
and
to
disconnected from teacher's
using the
corner.
other one. And, it just seems. I think it's more for the ships that I fly. I myself, I tend to either, if I'm going for pure DPS, I'll go for a destroyer, but I make sure I've got feedback pulse.
Yeah.
And I like to be able to cool down that quickly, so it's very nice to have that tactical readiness. And the other ships I fly tend to be sort of like gravel tank things, so I need to be able to get a decent cooldown on gravwells and other exotic abilities. And again, it will also help on this build with the 2 science skills we've put in there, because we've got another way of cooling them down, so that will help them.
You're
So
absolutely
again,
right.
that's another viable thing there to drop in a science officer that's a cranum. So you'll get the added bonus of both the science and the engineering being called down at the same rate.
Very true. Very, very true. Okay. So we've got 10 points in engineering, 25 in science, and 11 in tactical. All right. And battery expertise. So he's got in here, it shows in subsystem repair. I would change that over to maximum hull capacity.
I would agree with
So
that.
he gets so you get a bit more hull capacity. And for shields, he chose shield capacity. Good. Control resistance. Excellent. I would do subsystem energy drain resistance for the next choice. And of course, probability window for the choice of that one extra point in the science ultimate. And then for the skill unlocks for the tactical, threat control, projectile critical damage, good, and okay. So we are
And
good
they're
there.
looking quite good there.
Yes, they are. Very nice. Okay. So we're just about done. And ground, of course. Hey! Did you see the ground? He
Top left,
listens.
bottom right.
Top left, bottom right. Take a hike
Right
button.
now, the other thing that we haven't really discussed with this build
Yes.
is the starship traits, the ground traits, the space
Yes.
traits.
I saved that for last.
Yeah, the reason for that is we've been provided with no traits, so we are sort of shooting in the dark here. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a list of traits that will work with this build. Now, we're going to put in the ones that are very easy to get. However, we will tell you which ones you can optimally put in that slot
Yes.
if you have the resources and you're running a similar ship. Although we won't include it on this build. So if anybody wants to reference back, just hit the rewind button and mark this spot.
Yes. So basically what we're going to do, we're going to go with things either you can unlock by doing crafting or things that come with your ship normally. Like, for example, beam training. That gives you a bonus to all your beam weapons, and it comes for everybody on every ship. Beam barrage is unlockable through the crafting system. And then, of course, there's bulkhead technician. It gives you maximum hull hit points and is unlocked by everybody.
Particle manipulator.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure he needs particle manipulator
Oh.
though,
No, I'm
because
just saying
yeah,
it's a nice little skill, another freebie for
Yep.
other people that want to use it.
Brace under fire.
Yep.
yes,
But one of the other
As
things
an
that we can
engineer.
also take into consideration here is we are going to be coming up soon to an event where a certain lockbox is going to be dropping and you're going to be able to buy it. It's called the Infinity Lockbox. It's got one of the nice little bonuses that when you open this lockbox, it drops you a space trait box and you get the choice of any space trait you like. Before this box dropped, people used to sell a trait called Inspirational Leader, and it'd be starting price 50 million. You were lucky if you could get it for 90 million. This box came around; they were selling at one point as low as 6 million. They've stabilised between 8 and 12 million, sometimes a little bit higher, depending on how many of these boxes get opened. But the price has come down, so we might include some of those traits in there as well because they are now much easier to get hold of than they were 3-4 months ago. So what space traits have we got in there at the moment? We've got the beam training, haven't we? The free one.
So I've put in so far beam training, beam barrage, bulkhead technician. I did put in fleet coordinator. Yeah, fleet coordinator because that is one that comes with for everybody. And I just put in give your all, which you get from unlocking the engineering R&D school.
That's right. Yep, that's a good trait.
Then yes, and since he is an engineer, I can put in grace under fire. All engineers have grace under fire. It is a very good trait. Basically, when you take a whole bunch of damage, it cools down your engineering team, or not your cools down your miracle worker. So basically gives you another oh shit button.
Yeah,
Or
and
picks it up
another
faster.
good little another good little trait that it's one of the ones that comes from the trait pack. Is ablative shell. Works really well on a small vessel. It gives you that nice little rapid hull hill. And I do believe that can trigger every 30 seconds. So yeah, that's a nice little trait.
Yes, it does. It can be a little. It's one of those that comes from the from a lockbox. Impact Defense Specialist is another one that everybody has access to. So that's one I put in there. So basically, we're trying to go kind of budget on the traits right now.
Operative.
Yes.
Operative will work really well.
Operative is another good one.
Now, do all characters get access to the Warp Theorist trait?
They do. I believe it's profession specific, but I think it's in here. Hold on. Still looking for operative. Another good one is point blank shot that comes from running a mission.
That's a very good little trait as well.
It is. Where's operative? Okay, hold on. And I'm going to put point blank shot as the last one.
Excellent. Now, starship traits.
You get that from the House of Peg.
Yep, House of Peg.
That's it. Now, when it comes to starship traits, we have no idea what starship he has.
Very true. We know he has the Taadari.
Well, yeah, apart from the Taadari. So it's going to be very, very difficult for us to suggest traits.
Yes. Well, what we can do is recommend. We always recommend this, and it is considered a must-have. It is a very, very good trait for doing DPS, and that is, as much as people don't like to hear it, because it means they got to spend $30, emergency weapon cycle.
Yes.
And that comes from the Tier 6 Arbiter. That is very good trait.
That will count as your drain, which makes it viable to drop the 2-piece assimilated set.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of an investment, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be playing the game long term and you want to invest money, it's a good way to do it. And the ship itself is a very, very nice ship to fly as well. It's a pleasure to level up. And to be quite honest, you might even like flying it. I know I did. I stayed in mine for about a month. I still jump back to it now. Very nice ship.
So now there are some traits that come from running missions. So for example, I believe, is Battle Ready one of them? I know there's... Oh, I'm trying to remember.
Where I got Battle Ready from.
But I know, for example, Command Frequency is a nice one, and that comes from leveling up your command tree, your command specialization tree.
We can also throw in on that improved feedback pedal, or sorry, improved pedals to the metal.
Yep.
Because in that little raider, he is going to be bombing around at full throttle.
The battle ready trait comes from the Eclipse Intel Cruiser.
Okay, thank you for that. I know there was something that comes from a something similar that comes from a mission, but I'm trying to remember what it was.
So I'm looking at the Starship trait for the Taadari, and it's obviously not in the list. It's called Spoils of Victory, and it says, while slotted, defeating any enemy will grant a hull and shield heal over time effect. This can occur every 20 seconds.
That might actually be a good one to put in.
That's not bad, actually.
I mean, if you're
I guess it's build.
If he doesn't have the budget, yeah, I would.
Yeah. Drop it in for now.
It'll help to improve his survivability. You said it was spoils.
It's not in the skill planner.
We can drop that in the notes.
Okay.
I mean, we also have access to some of the other free traits that are there. If we need to, like the where is it? the improved predictive
Oh, it was the
algorithms.
best defense. That's what it was. That
Oh
was the one you
yes,
get
the
from
attack
running the
patterns
mission.
grant a
Yes.
healing buff.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
So that's
quite
a
a
good
good one.
one. And then, yeah.
Now that in itself is very much like the ability that you get on the Intel tree, the attack pattern expertise. That whenever you
Pilot.
activate an attack pattern, pilot tree.
Yeah.
That whenever you activate the attack pattern, you get the so for moving away where people used to use Intel and Pilot. That trait in itself on this build would actually make up for that, so he'll get the added bonus, very much like the attack pattern expertise ability. That's quite a nice little trait. Right, so how many slots do we have left for him?
Sorry, I was typing. That actually fills up all 5.
Nice. Right,
So that fills
reputation
up all 5
for
starship traits.
space.
Yes, space rep.
Right.
I think our standard with energy refrequencer.
Yep, I would go the enhanced armor pen, the auxiliary power
Yep.
configuration offense, the advanced targeting systems, possibly precision.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the energy refrequencer. And you've got a nice little offensive loadout, and if you're doing enough damage, that energy refrequencer will be an amazing heal for you.
Yes, it will.
And you've got a lot of boost of damage in there. You've got your pen in there, and you've got a really, really good buff to your crit.
Enhanced armor pen. Okay. So I put Nukara 4-piece or Nukara tier 4 offense, advanced targeting systems, energy refrequencer, precision, and enhanced armor pen.
Yep. Right, ground
Yep.
reputation. Ground reputation, you don't need any. You've got a hypo, you've done top left and top right, you're sorted.
You can do deadly aim. It's the same thing as advanced targeting systems.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not familiar with some of the ground traits for the engineer, so whoever's got ground engineer familiar.
Lethality for crit chance. So you're basically doing very similar to what we do with the space. You're going to have your crit chance, your crit severity. For engineer, there's
Personal energy amplifier.
No, there's where is it? Mental acuity. Okay, so this increases your damage while aiming in ground combat. This increases everything. So if you go into aiming mode, you lay down a set of mines, your mines are increased from mental acuity. So is the damage from your, from any things that you put on. So mental acuity is a good one. And then there was, I'm trying to remember another one. If you're finding you're a little squishy, indomitable will increase your maximum health. There is, you were saying, what was it you said, Steve? Personal energy amplifier?
Yeah, personal energy amplifier.
Yeah, kit-based abilities deal extra damage. And then there is another one that's similar to energy refrequencer. I'm trying to remember what it's called. So if you're finding you're a little squishy, you could go with that as well. Or you could go with armor penetration, which of course does.
Was it energized nanites?
The thing with ground traits is they don't carry the same value as space traits.
Yeah, they don't.
So, I mean, I was looking last night on the exchange. I have a load of boxes on one toon that I can turn into various ground traits, and I was looking through them. The most expensive I found was 2.8 million, which for a trait is a quarter of the price of your average space trait. So it brings it a lot more into a viable budget. You could easily grind out the money EC wise just through normal pickups and drops in game I'd say if you work really hard at it, you could do it in a day. If you've done it lazily, you could do
Now,
it in
there
2 to 3
are a
days.
few, I'm not sure if you looked for adrenal release,
There's some that are
but I
really
know,
cheap.
yeah.
But one that I would recommend would be Vicious.
Vicious, definitely. There's a,
2.8 mil at the moment.
from what I remember, there's a standard one. There's Vicious adrenal release. It gives you, it does sacrifice your health, so you're a bit more vulnerable when you use it for 10 seconds, but it basically gives you a drastic increase in damage.
Yeah,
So
it
it's
basically
kind of
reads
like a, yeah.
you're able to enter a berserker rage at will, drastically increasing your ability to deal damage. So you get a 50% outgoing damage bonus, but you get a minus 100 resistance to all damage rating. So there is a cost to it.
Yes, there is. And then Vicious, of course, as well as Sniper. Sniper is another good one. And these are all available off the exchange, so these are the ones if you're going to buy something.
Orbital
you should buy, yeah.
devastation.
For an engineer, definitely Orbital Devastation is highly recommended.
I'll tell
That's
you what,
probably going to be an expensive one.
Ronan, if you don't have orbital devastation, just let myself, Kirby, or Steve know, and I will mail you an orbital devastation.
There you
Nice.
go. Awesome.
So that'll save you the cost of that going onto your build.
Hive Mind is another good one.
That's quite a good little trait as well.
Yes, it is.
Also,
And-
Coalition Squad Tactics. It's a cheap trait, but if you're
yeah.
running round on the ground in a team,
There you go.
you get a different bonus for each one of your teammates. I quite like that trait. I use it a lot on Deferrer.
Yeah.
And a free trait
Depending
that
on
he's
the-
got, field technician, since he's an engineer.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a good idea.
Well, all the traits are currently full. So now, of course, we
we've got our
realize
bridge
some of these that
officers.
we put in will cost money. But again, this is ground. So this is an example of things you can get that will improve your DPS on the ground. But not necessary if you're just looking for space. Then, of course, your active reputation. If you can get definitely anti-time singularity, that thing is awesome.
Yes.
Yes. Biomolecular shield gen. Go ahead.
I will admit to you guys now, even my main tune doesn't have tier 5 on temporal. But by the time this recording goes out, I can honestly say it'll be within 20 hours. I'll have that, and I'll have that slotted. And I'd hate to think what my side 2 will be doing then.
Now, to get the most out of it, before you hit your anti-time entanglement, hit your quantum singularity manipulation. Because this gives you plus 100 to all of your science skills. So it's going to drastically increase the particle generators that your anti-time entanglement does damage based off of.
I really, really, really can't wait to use this. I
And
know.
Ed's drooling at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have part gens falling out of my ears when I do certain things in certain maps, and yes, I'm really looking forward to this one, and I'll let you know my results on next week's show. That's if I manage to make it out from being a gibber and wreck on the floor.
Yeah.
No change really. Right, so what have we got left on this build now?
Well, we didn't take a really close look at duty officer.
No, we didn't.
We looked at it briefly, yeah.
Again, it's one of those ones, budget. What do we have?
Well, he is reducing the time on all consumable batteries and battery abilities, which tells me he's using batteries. Most people have the at least one of the maintenance engineers, the free one.
I just knew you were going to say that.
You knew well, I mean, heck. Okay,
Yeah,
additional
I introduced Kirby, unfortunately, to maintenance engineers a few years back when we happened to lose
the
There was an
crits.
exploit on one of the
Yeah.
consoles,
It wasn't an
and
exploit, it was the
well, it
crit.
was an exploit. It was the way they changed it. They dropped the crits, and Kirby and I were discussing how to get the difference back. And I suggested maintenance engineers, and we both slotted 3 of them, and we not only recovered the damage, but we surpassed the damage that was actually coming from them. So
Mm-hmm.
it more than made up for it. So it's been a recommendation of ours ever since. If you've
Yeah.
only got the one slot one, if you can manage all 3, go all 3. But as many spare slots as you have, drop in a maintenance engineer to help with the
Mm-hmm.
batteries. They do some amazing effects.
They do. They really do. Okay, so that, because I noticed he was using the energy amplifier, so that'll help there.
Yeah, I would also be tempted as well. Maybe to it depends on the budget. He might only be able to get blue, but either drop in the officers that stack the crit severity buff on beam
Oh.
weapons, or ones that affect the cooldown of beam abilities, especially fire at will.
Oh, yeah.
They're spendy.
I know
They
they are
are
expensive,
pretty expensive.
but that's why I'm
And
thinking of the crit
they're
severity ones, even at blue, can be quite cheap.
energy weapons officer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's got a rare energy weapon officer for crit severity right now, and he has a
Yeah.
rare one for crit chance,
Okay.
along with a new cool space warfare specialist.
What does
Yeah.
the cool give them a bonus on?
So I would say
So
you
it's
can leave those, yeah.
It gives you a 20% chance to take 10% of the next 10 sources from tactical abilities, giving outgoing damage that applies as whole healing.
That's actually pretty good for a little.
That is.
Yeah, for survivability, that'll help. So I would say leave those. Since they're not listed, because he noticed they're not listed in his thing. So I would say
Yeah.
maybe leave those. That gives him 3 there. And yeah, it's actually not bad.
So it doesn't have the 6 dots slot for space yet, or
So
ground.
I'm wondering if we want to leave this technician in though. Wondering if there's something else we could put there, or
That's a very good question.
yeah.
I would drop the technician.
Okay. So then comes the question: what do we put instead?
Did you replace the quartermaster with a maintenance engineer?
I didn't replace. I added a
No.
maintenance engineer.
With the
Separate.
6th slot.
Yeah.
So
So when
you
you get
have
the 6th slot, can drop in a maintenance engineer.
Okay.
One of the things I would drop in there that would be very, very nice would be a con officer to reduce the cooldown on tactical team and give him a buff. Oh no, he's running 2 copies. He's not going to need that.
Yeah, he's not
Yeah.
going to need.
Yeah,
I
there's no
was
point in
thinking
reducing the cooldown on that.
a warp core engineer.
Oh, yeah.
Boost his power levels when he uses an emergency power ability.
Could.
I might even say another maintenance engineer. Put a second one in. Another 10% damage from a weapons battery.
Yeah.
He's using the exotic amplifier, so he's going to get plus 10 energy to all subsystems anyway.
True.
Because you get the plus 5, plus he's also getting an unlisted 2.5% bonus to the damage, so what's that, an extra 5% cat 1.5 damage off the battery itself. So that would be a nice little boost for another one of those in there. Having the 2.
Well, I mean, if it's going to be the 6th slot, he should definitely save up then and try and get a energy weapon officer that'll for the beam attacks.
Well, he's not really going to need it because he's doubled up on the beam attack.
Yeah.
So.
It's a difficult one, suggested officers.
Yeah, it is. I would say, so we've got, right now we've got 2 maintenance engineers, a quartermaster, and then the warp core engineer. And I would say, because it looks like he's only got 5 right now. So the last one can be the warfare specialist that he has already.
Yeah.
That's not listed, of course.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
mean, the other thing to think of is as well, I mean, sometimes with, I know that we did suggest using the officers that boost the crit severity and the crit chance. You've got to remember it is only a small % chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, the effect
And then-
does last 15 seconds, but I've never seen, well, I say I've never seen, I've never actually taken notice, but when I have noticed it, I've never seen more than 2 stacks on that officer in any one
Yeah.
match.
It's hard to get
And
high
yeah,
stacks.
you need to stack up on the 3 of them and hope they all go off at the same time.
Yeah.
Or within quick succession of each other.
Yep. Okay, so remember for the engineering bridge officer, we're recommending you get a Krenim bridge officer so that you can get these cooldowns, especially for the engineering team, and reverse shield polarity, or sorry, the emergency power to weapons and the reverse shield polarity. So you
And
can
then
get those down.
You
Go
can
ahead.
also do the same with science as well. You can go for the science if you want.
Yep.
However, you can also get, is it the hierarchy officer, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you've got access to him. And one of his traits, I believe, is pirate, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Which gives you a nice little damage bonus in space combat.
Yes, it does.
So either one of those two, yes, all right, you will get a small little detriment from the cooldown on the science abilities, but you've got enough survivability built in with the engineering to allow for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So is that the last of it?
That is it.
Okay, I
That
think
is
we're all
it.
done.
We are all done. So this has been Teacher Kirby, Ed, and just Steve with another episode of Utopia Planitia. If you'd like to submit your build, you can either send us an in-game email or send us an email to utopiaplanitiashow@gmail.com. And all of our @handles and that address will be appearing on your screen shortly. Say goodnight, folks.
Good night, Ain.
Good night, Ain.
Good night, Ain.
Good night, folks.